Welcome back to At a Time Football Podcast. It has been 4 years. Is that is that correct? I think summer of 2020 was the last episode. So
Yep.
things have changed since then. We are grown men, but we still love our football clubs. That will never change. Um, we've got an absolute humdinger in store today. We've got a lot going on at our clubs, respectively. There's also a lot to reflect on in football at this moment. It's a busy time with the Euros coming up. Champions League final just concluding today as of recording. But specifically at Chelsea and Liverpool, new managers, new eras, respectively, for both clubs. Now, for you, being a Liverpool fan, obviously you have gotten used to the stability of Jurgen Klopp throughout the years, the legend that he is. How does it feel to have a new manager for the first time in 8, 9 years?
Uh, it's a bit crazy, honestly. All I've known is Jurgen pretty much. But like obviously as a younger, I got a bunch of different other managers, but like my era kind of started with Jurgen and now it's ending. Like I started with Jurgen as like a boy. I was 12, 11.
Hmm.
Now I'm 20, going on 21 with Arne Slot. But it's nice. It's kind of refreshing to have that change because I know that like the team that we have now is built off of just success, just what Klopp has left and his legacy that he's left behind is nice for the rest of our team. And there we've got a bunch of leadership who's going to carry that on. And on top of that, we've got youth now. We've got Connor Bradley, we've got Dans, we've got Harvey Elliott, we've got a lot of players that can carry on this Jurgen kind of philosophy and mentality and
Hmm.
carry it, especially since the way Arne Slot kind of plays football is not necessarily the same, but he has somewhat the same ideologies as Jurgen. So I think it will be a good transitional period for both the players and my new manager. And I can't wait to watch it all unfold.
Yeah, I think most people who've been paying attention to everything like behind the scenes, it doesn't really. I mean, it definitely. This is Arne Slot's era. This is his club, but it feels more like this is the Michael Edwards era. Now that he's back, he's on. I think making a lot of money to be back as your director. It kind of feels like he kind of has the keys to Liverpool now to carry you guys forward and to progress you guys into this era without Jurgen Klopp, because Jurgen Klopp is what built you guys. But what are your like? How do you envision you playing next season? Your like playing style, formation, positionally, all of that. Because I really wanted Arne Slot as our next coach. Eventually, I know last summer we made a big effort to get him, and then I felt like he would be the perfect coach to take over after Pochettino in like 2 years, like 2 years after Pochettino once his contract expired. But I was angry to see Liverpool get the guy that I wanted desperately. Because I have a lot of respect for him. I rate him really highly. I think he's a really, really good coach. So I think I
Yeah,
kind of ran on, but yeah.
yeah. Honestly, I think we're gonna go back to how we started when Jurgen first came in and tested it out when we had Firmino. I think we're gonna go back to that 4-2-3-1 because Arne Slot likes to play the 4-2-3-1 also with the 4-3-3. We see he has the same ideologies as well as with Klopp. He shares some with Pep with that kind of like inverted fullback slash wingback. Um I think we're gonna see Trent in midfield. I think a lot of people are expecting him to be the inverted fullback, but I actually think we're gonna see him in midfield and we're gonna see more of like a Joe Gomez kind of invert. We're gonna see more of a defensive style inverted
Interesting.
fullback rather than an inverted wingback.
Hmm.
Um, I think there's gonna be a crucial season for both Harvey Elliott and Szoboszlai. They've kind of been our like Mazalas, and the way that Arne Slot uses Mazalas, aka like his tens, is it kind of suits both of their styles. I think there's going to be a big season for Gakpo. We're going to see him. I think the way Arne plays with that center forward and that winger who likes to drop in more defensively to receive the ball down deep, I feel like that matches Cody Gakpo's style of play
Hmm.
really well. So he's going to explode there. My only concern really is like Nunez because obviously, he's a great player on his day, but he's a bit inconsistent. I think we're going to see a bit of Connor Bradley, whether it's as a just normal wingback or even in the inverted role.
Hmm.
Basically, everything on top of that might stay the same. We have been linked with Ederson as a midfield. So I could see a future Ederson Trent link up. Maybe McAllister moves back up to the 10. We've seen him play a
Hmm.
few games at the 10 for us here, and he's been very crucial for us this season. Obviously, he can play the 6, he can play the 8, but I feel like we get the most out of him at the 10. But we also have Harvey Elliott and Zob so we'll see where that goes.
Hmm.
Jota can really play anywhere because Jota likes to play. He likes to receive the ball deep as well. Like
Yeah.
he's a good finisher. He could play that center forward. It's when I break down Arne Slot's type of style of play and I talk about it fitting with Liverpool players, it's just very obvious to see why Liverpool would want a coach like Arne
Hmm.
Slot. It fits our style
Yeah.
so well. It's like one or two gray areas, but even then, you're like, oh, we put this player here, and that gray area becomes such a green area. It's just an exciting time
Hmm.
for a lot of players at our club, especially with people leaving, like Joel Matip leaving. This creates now more minutes for Joel Quanto, who's just had an unreal season.
Yeah.
Thiago leaving, so that also leaves another midfield. Like he wasn't playing this season, of course, but it will leave space for another midfielder to maybe come up through the ranks. We have Tyler Morton coming back, Carvalho coming back. Maybe one of them gets a chance. We have Sepp Vandenberg, who just had an incredible season at Mainz. Um, we might give him a chance out there. He's very capable of playing in the ball playing kind of role that Arne Slot likes, but he's also very capable of playing inverted fullback. We saw that when he was on loan at Preston. It's just the more I think about, like it's been quite exciting to see where this. I haven't been this excited in terms of like paying for a while because obviously my team has been in a period where if it's not broke, don't fix it. But now we're seeing a whole new system come in. We're seeing a whole new manager, a whole new way of things. We're seeing Edwards now calls the shots rather than Klopp calling the shots. So now we're going to see that change within not only just the players or the tactics. We're going to see a big change within the staff as almost Klopp's entire staff is now gone. It's just
Hmm.
we're saying goodbye to an era, but we're saying hello to like a new age, and it's going to be a new type of exciting football from my club, and
Yep.
it's going to be obviously it's not something I haven't been used to for eight. I haven't seen it since Jurgen first came in with our club when we had Joe Allen, and he didn't really have much options. Now we have loads of options, so it's
Mhm.
not to take a shot at Joe Allen, he's an incredible footballer, but I mean compared to the club or the teams that Jurgen Klopp has built over the time, just it's incredible the work he's done, and I'm excited for the future that we have.
Yeah. I think I've watched a lot of Arnie Slot clips. I can say I've watched a lot of like Feyenoord. um, but just being interested in him, like I've watched a lot of clips, and I think one thing that he does that's interesting, a lot of coaches when they invert their fullback, like the other fullback kind of tucks to form a back three, but Arnie Slot just like all action, like that fullback is still like just flying up and down generally. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So like if fullback's tucking in from the right, and for Feyenoord that would be like your Troida, but he also would tuck from the left depending on who's fit and where he's able to play. But um, I think Robertson would still be like a really like important player for you guys on the left. But yeah, I'm excited for you guys. Like, I think Slot is the perfect next coach. I'm definitely jealous because I wanted him, and I feel like his football is just so good. I think him as a coach, I've seen so many clips of him like just speaking to his team, like how he addresses his team. I think he's a great coach, and he was destined for the very top of
yeah.
football, and so I really like him. He's a good young coach. I know. Yeah, I know he was big on our list last summer. But you guys got him early, and yeah, it's interesting for both of us because you guys are coming off of it's for Liverpool, you guys win trophies all the time, but league success isn't necessarily like a huge part of your history. You guys are more so a cup team, and especially in Europe. And so I would say you guys still had a fairly positive season just with it being Klopp's last season, and it felt very transitional for you guys because a lot of really important players have left over the last year or so. Um, so I think, and just with Michael Edwards returning, who I think Michael Edwards is probably the best director in football, and I know Chelsea also made a really aggressive attempt to get him as well, which makes sense because he's probably the best at what he does. I'm excited for that, like to see your guys' new era, and just I think Slot is the guy to take over. So, but Chelsea right now, it's not as as bright.
I mean, I don't
Uh,
know. You guys got a great thing going on right now. You got a new manager,
yeah,
great change, just like us.
yeah. So I mean. I would say, and I think I hold a much more positive view over Chelsea than most Chelsea fans. And when I became like a hardcore Chelsea fan, it was probably 5 or so years ago. But I would have said that I was a big Chelsea fan before that, maybe because you kind of introduced me uh to football um and so in my history being a Chelsea fan, really hard Chelsea fan is probably right when Conte came, or maybe a little after. So the best thing in my history is witnessing Chelsea win the Champions League in 2020, but league success hasn't necessarily been a huge part of our story. In that time, Conte, or sorry, and Tuchel are the only coaches who we placed at least third with since that time, because we placed fourth with Tuchel, we placed fourth with Lampard, and then this we placed 12th with Tuchel, Potter, and Lampard last season. And this season, I would say retrospectively is a positive season, but when you in those months of when Chelsea were really really bad and it felt like we were gonna have another like 10th place mid-table finish, it didn't feel like there was really anything to like look forward to. But now looking back on the season, seeing sixth place, we have European football next season, obviously Conference League with Manchester United winning. um, and we have Cole Palmer, who is one of the best players in the Premier League and just absolutely exploded. And I'm excited to see his impact going forward. And he's a huge player, and so the future is really bright. And I think I hold a really positive view on Chelsea and the club. Um, I know the owners haven't done everything right, and there's a lot of decisions. I think especially their first summer in charge, and probably the next window, January, um, it was just a lot of bad business, a lot of like Todd Bowley taking over as like the director was just like ridiculous, and that resulted in us getting like Kalidou Koulibaly and Raheem Sterling and getting Kukurea for like 70 million nearly, and paying him insane wages. And I love Kukurea, he was great this season, but um it just there was a lot of really bad business done this summer. And so I think now that we have a real footballing structure in place, we can move forward and kind of have hope for the future. And yeah, we Enzo Maresca hasn't been confirmed yet, but he will be our next head coach. And I think he's always been the top guy on that I've expected. I don't know about the top guy on my list necessarily, but he's always been who I presume to be the next Chelsea coach, I think, from when the first list of names was released. I had been following him pretty close at Leicester because I just thought it was really interesting. Pep's number two leaving and then going to the strongest club in the championship. And he definitely didn't have a hard job at Leicester. He had easily the most talented squad, and they made some really good signings too. Like that Leicester team could easily probably place, 15th or above in the Premier League, I think. They just were like a really talented team. And they just had a really unfortunate year before. I think they were projected to place like 13th or 14th the year they got relegated, so that was just difficult. So he didn't have a hard job, but the thing that's really promising with him is his style of football. He's very much like a Pep disciple. He prioritizes possession and positional play, and he does what Slot does too, and what a lot of modern managers are doing, where inverting a fullback is incredibly important to him. And so at Leicester, that was Ricardo Pereira, and then when it wasn't Pereira, it was really interesting. Hamza Chowdhury would play right back and invert into the midfield, which makes sense. Um, but instead of what Slot does and what Pep Guardiola did when they won the treble, the left back doesn't kind of bomb up and down the pitch. He tucks in to form a back three. Um, and so I think that suits us. I think his system and the way that he plays will suit us really well. And I think we do, despite what a lot of people are saying, I think we do have the players to fit the profile and the system that he plays. Because I think that's kind of what we've been trying to build the last couple years. But yeah, he likes to invert his fullback to form a double pivot, and generally that's a right back. But Chelsea have like obviously like really interesting options there because Kukurea inverted for the last 5.5 games of the season, and that was probably his best stretch at Chelsea ever, I would say, in his time at being at Chelsea. He looked really good inverting, and he looked really comfortable, and I think it took advantage of his skill set. But I also think he would do well like in that tucking in at center back role, because he played center back at Brighton a little bit. I think he played center back for Tuchel very shortly, and then he played center back for Potter very briefly as well at Chelsea. So it's not a position that he's unfamiliar with, but I think, um, yeah, I guess we can get into players like that we see fitting in and signings and stuff in a little, but just all in all, I feel really positive about the the just Enzo Maresca and the appointment, and I think it'll be a growing period, and I hope he gets time, and that's not necessarily we haven't seen that with the Chelsea owners yet, managers getting time. Um, but I think the main thing that Chelsea want is we want a manager who's willing to work within the structure of the club because that's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build a city-like thing or a Red Bull where we have, you know, a real like club structure where we have an identity of how we want and we don't want the manager to be like the main figure of that. We basically just want him to coach the team and not really step beyond that. And so I think Maresca does fit that. And I'm sure he'll have players that he wants, and that's not like illegal. I'm sure. I'm sure like the directors, if Maresca's like, I want this guy, they'll be like, okay, we'll consider it, but we'll also like look at the data and see if there's maybe someone else that would fit that role better or something. Um, and so, yeah, I do think Chelsea will be back eventually. I just think it's impossible to spend this much money, have this much talent to not be back eventually. I just think we have a really young, inexperienced team, a really inconsistent team, and as they grow together, especially with Maresca, hopefully if he's given time, I think there will be some really positive things. And I'm excited to see how he does or what he does, how he sets up the team. But maybe I think we need to take a break because there's a time limit.
Yeah.
Um, but after, maybe we can talk about how we expect like team setup to be, and then maybe we can transition that into signings.